So, I don't know what inspired me to do this. Lots of friends telling me I should do more stuff like this, so this is good. So, we're just going to go through the questions. Thank you guys for participating and asking and having interest. And Twitter's awesome because people, I mean, I'm allowed to just be myself and be nerdy and be weird and be whatever. And there are people that reciprocate or who are interested. That's amazing to me. What a time to be alive. All right. So, we're going to go with Hella's question first. She says here, do you have any memories of or had visions of the pre-Earth life? And right off the bat, I could say no. I don't know. Maybe I have had them, and I just don't know yet. I have had lots of dreams, and I guess what you could say visions, sure. And I'm very visual in my thinking. I always have been ever since I was very young. I had two reoccurring nightmares that I could kind of recite for you verbatim, or I mean, like everything that happened, it's just as real today as it was when I was 8 years old having these things. One of them, I don't know what the setting is or what it was about. Ultimately, I still don't, although I ask. And the other one was induced by a scary movie I had watched when I was little, so it had to do with like aliens and some weird stuff, and definitely not pre-Earth life stuff. So I have not. I don't have any memories, but that doesn't mean that I don't believe that that's possible or that people do. So short answer to that. Okay, and then we have Peregrine that asks a question. He says, have you considered element or the intelligence that makes up all things? What's your understanding of priesthood in relation to this substance? And I'm actually going to save this question and wait to answer that because I saw a couple more that were pretty similar. So give me a sec. I'm just pasting it over here in a Word document, and I'll answer that one in a second. Okay, next up is Tammy and aliens. Would love your thoughts on aliens and if you think they'll have a role in the second coming. And actually, yes, I do. I do believe aliens are a thing, but let's destigmatize the word, I guess. I think everyone's afraid to use the word alien, yet we're totally comfortable talking about Moroni appearing in Joseph Smith's room through a conduit and leaving and having translated beings, giving the priesthood to people, or angels visiting Mary, or just all throughout the scriptures, you have extraterrestrials basically visiting the earth. And we know that translated beings and resurrected beings do not abide on this earth because this earth is currently under a telestial state. So you have people of higher states. They can't reside on this. Even during the millennium, Christ will not live on the earth. He will be here with us, and he will be, a thought away. But their residence will be in another sphere, and that's been stated. I don't know. I can't cite the source for you now, but I could find it if you really wanted. But yeah, they're not gonna reside here or live here. They can't, because there's a different state. You have to be in the same state of the place you're on. That's why translated beings have the ministering and calling to, or to minister out to other planets. It's a different type of thing. So aliens, yes, they exist. We call them angels. And the Mystery Babylon, and the occult world right now does a really good job of obfuscating the future by making it all fantasy. And it's in our entertainment with pre-programming. They do a lot of predictive programming in that sense, where the things that we think only can happen on the big screen, like Independence Day, where this alien invasion happens over the Capitol or over New York or whatever, we think, oh, that's the movies, that's Hollywood, but it's really predictive programming, and it's a reverse engineering of gospel prophecy that we know is going to happen. We know that the city of Enoch will return, that the city of Salem and Melchizedek and their residents will return, that the lost 10 tribes will return. A lot of these are all translated beings in my perspective and view, and in the scriptures. They're going to come from outside the planet and come down. So they will be like an alien invasion for the wicked, because these will be terrible, righteous, lightning-looking, warlike posture saints that will be returning to the earth to essentially cause the big division of the millennium. So yeah, I believe in aliens, but when you frame it in the context of like Little Green Men and all the popular culture around it, no, I think this is a psychological operation done by those behind the scenes pulling the curtains. The Wizards of Oz is what I'll call them. So the sorcerers of modern times, these are the ones that are putting out the alien psyop, where you think about it, the entire phenomena is to push fear, the unknown, and also I believe it's just essentially them stunting on us with technologies that they've had suppressed for a long time, whether it be anti-gravity or the things I talk about with the electric universe and being able to manipulate magnetism and gravity using those elements, just basic elements, things that they've really made complicated with modern science, where It's all equations that you can manipulate very easily without any practical physics being actually applied. The theoretical world rules today. And in that context, it's really easy to manipulate what people believe about science while you continue to use like just the basic things, these hardwire electricities grids that we're hooked up to. The people who have those in place and profit off them have no incentive to give us some type of alternative energy source. So, but I think it's naive and kind of dumb to think that we haven't surpassed current electric and energy technologies. And we're always like, oh, we're going to get that cold fusion someday, or that nuclear fusion. No, they've got it done. It's been found. It's been suppressed. And they're going to pull it all out, I believe, in terms of Tammy's question here and the second coming and aliens and if they have a role in it. Yes, I believe that this will be a deception. I think a lot of people, when you look into conspiracies and the occult and follow the things through Ezra Taft Benson, this is how I went down this road, where you read the book None Dare Call It a Conspiracy, and then you go to the sources that are used in that book or the stories that are brought up in that book, and you can branch off into any element of society or discipline of society and see the corruption has taken root. And this is pre-predicted that there would be terrorists first here, and then there would be an alien invasion and the World War III and things. And the order of things, I don't know. All right, I don't know, and I don't think anybody could tell you for certainty how it's going to happen or when it's going to happen or the timeline for sure. But definitely if you're just taking a look at what's going on in the media, the propaganda they're putting out, the fear that they're always, oh yeah, aliens are real, and now the Navy and the military are confirming these things with unidentified flying objects being recorded and the footage coming out. It to me is just a validation that these things are on the horizon and it'll be surprised upon us. I think the powers in be that have put us at war for the last 200 years since the prophecy on war, Joseph Smith predicted that this would happen. It would start with the Civil War once America was established, and then war would continue throughout the world until there was this major divide where you had two powers, the Church of God and the Church of the Devil and the Kingdom of the Devil. You had the Babylon versus Zion in the millennium finally forged through once these wars had been ritually completed. And reading through the occult documents and things like that, there were 3 wars that are planned. You have the World War I, World War II, and all of these wars were used to push money around and things like that. And I understand if conspiracy stuff's too crazy for you, but this is the world I live in. And if you're wanting my perspective, I'm just being honest that I've read enough of this and looked into it enough, and I take Ezra Taft Benson seriously enough that he warned and pointed at this very behemoth, the force behind communism. It's not communism itself that's the secret society or the secret combination of the devil in these days, but it's the people behind it, the mystery Babylon that aren't putting a public face out for that very reason. So in that context, I can't tell you like who it is behind the curtain. And I know we have another question of that coming up, but I spent a lot of time on this. I think it's okay. The alien question's a weird one. Not a lot of people want to go there, and especially in the church, it's very stigmatized and kind of like same as the realm of the occult and astrology and those types of things, that it's kind of shunned to even look into that stuff. But to be honest, I think it's really important to look into that stuff. If you're not aware that this is planned by evil people, that they want to mimic a war in heaven, they want to mimic all the things of the Bible so that those who do believe in these things will take them at, hey, this is it happening. We're watching Revelations happen right now. But they'll be fooled because it'll be a man-made version of it first before the actual heavens shake and the real angels, the tribes, and everybody come back like a roaring lion to chase them out of America. So yeah, I think aliens will have a play in the second coming. And if you ask me to give you a timeline, just to guess, I would guess that as we see the decline of American freedoms happen, as we're witnessing it, taking part of it so rapidly, you're going to have war break out on a global scale again to hide the uncovering of these secret combinations. I think all the truth in this internet era is coming out, and they don't have the control or power like they used to, and control over the media to control of the information. So we're currently experiencing like an information war, but it'll crystallize, I believe, into a kinetic war. And at that point, that's when I think they'll let certain people blow each other up, certain places be destroyed, certain armies exhaust their resources, and then they'll pull out these technologies, and they'll call it alien. They'll call it a superior race. They might even claim to be from Andromeda Galaxy or some far-off place, and they'll do it in the name of, hey, you guys can't govern yourselves. You guys can't handle the responsibility of this planet, and we're going to take over for you. And the people who aren't prepared for this, who maybe didn't expect this to happen or expected the rapture to happen before all of this, or I'm talking the general Christian world, it'll break their faith. And there will be, I believe, an Antichrist figure who around this time or either before or during it, will kind of be the voice behind it all, and will reveal things that will make even the very elect kind of question their faith and what's going on, because he will call fire from heaven, and he'll use all these occulted technologies or suppressed technologies to wow the people into thinking he's a great magician and more powerful than the priesthood. And this will be a great time of tribulation, but it also, for me, is exciting because we read in Nephi, and even President Nelson recently, who quoted that, saying we're at the precipice of this time period that Nephi saw, where we're the people that are going to be endowed with great power from heaven. We're going to be the people that the Lord will not forget. We've made a covenant. The church will stand against this. Yes, we'll be yelled at, berated, and persecuted, and likely there will be many martyrs after, for between now and the second coming. But all in all, I am with President Nelson and that I'm super optimistic, despite all the weird occult stuff and dark things that I know. So just goes to show you've got to approach all of this with a balance that, yes, there are dark and evil things that people are doing and secret combinations and alien invasions that are planned. But at the same time, we believe and we know that there are also going to be angels that return and amazing blessings and gifts of the Spirit that'll be poured out. We will be healing people. People will look to us. They will see the light in our eyes and know that we are disciples of Christ. Like some amazing body changes as we and the earth begin to kind of shift into a different state towards the millennium. So it's enough on that question. I could go a lot more into that if you wanted to get specific with, different aircraft or Area 51, or there's a million directions you can go in all of these avenues that I love to explore. And that's what I'm all about, because if you want a real picture, you've got to be able to have a narrative like the gospel, like we have, like the priesthood that we have, that can tie it all together, that can make sense of it all, that can sift through the nonsense, the propaganda, and the blatant lies to bring it all to make gospel sense. So, all right, we'll move on. Thank you, Tammy. I like the alien question. And if you think of any more specific questions throughout this, or if I've said anything now that has prompted a question, we'll do it again. So keep the question. All right, now I can't read Korean, but Latter-day Korea says, I think the second coming is going to happen in my lifetime. According to the scriptures, I'm 22. How much would you give? How much would I give? Like a percentage that it's going to happen, 0 to 99? I would say 100%. I was born believing that the second coming was something that I was going to see, and my patriarchal blessing and everything in my life, and especially everything happening within the last 4 to 10 years. I think since the internet, I guess, to watch step back and see the bigger historical arc that's taking place and to see how rapidly life, culture, and governments are changing, that definitely, there's no doubt in my mind, especially because I believe in Ezra's eagle prophecy, and that by that, time bomb, we are within. I mean, it could happen that America is essentially destroyed, like that moment with the Constitution hanging from a thread. Yes, I believe we're kind of there, but I think it'll push even more, and especially, what do we have, 4 or 5 more presidents to go through before it says that the eagle is burned, before America is burned. And I believe that's the time when war happens. That's the time when the Antichrist comes in, destroys the secret combinations, and basically takes up kingship, or tries to take up kingship over the American continent. And then you have some crazy things happen where the 10 tribes return, and the remnant that is left on this land will vex the Gentiles at that point, and it'll be an all-out war, essentially. So yeah, I think we'll see it, and I think it could happen very soon. I don't know, depending on how quickly truth comes out, will really dictate how quickly this goes. I would give it, like I tell people in private, I guess, within a decade that America will be totally different in terms of its transformation towards Zion and the building of the New Jerusalem and all the catastrophes that must take place before that. I think we'll be well into it within the decade, for sure. So, I mean, in that regard, Christ is coming at that point. Christ will be coming to Zion and to the saints first there in America as all this is going down at Adam-on-Diamond and beyond. This is all before he goes to step on the Mount in Olives on the other side of the world. So it's kind of the first shall be the last, and the last shall be the first, where and that's what I think a lot of saints aren't recognizing, and a message I try to get across is that we need to be ready because Christ is coming to us first. And we like to think the second coming is this event on Mount Olives, and there's all these things that need to take place in the temple in Jerusalem, and we have been here and there, and it doesn't matter. We are going to be judged first, like way before, and we need to be prepared for that. And I think that's how he comes as a thief in the night. I mean, if it was this long thing, drawn out thing that everybody's watching coming, how is he going to catch the very elect off guard? How are they going to be fooled? No, there's going to be some real tribulation, some crazy cosmic things that are make everybody question reality, and then he will suddenly be upon the saints. And I think maybe even before that, he'll visit the faithful, and he already is. But I mean in mass. So, okay. Moving on. How is the Ice Age accounted for with the global flood? Ooh, this is a kind of a loaded question. I'll just answer it briefly in that when you take the electric universe and plasma cosmology as kind of a foundation for how you view the age of the earth and the catastrophic or fantastical events that the Bible and other things bring up that are hard to explain, right? When you take a different cosmological foundation like I do and I'm trying to present, and I understand that it's weird and hard to grasp, and I often sound like I'm speaking Chinese or some different language, and I know that, but just press with me. I mean, this is very different. But the basic premise of a catastrophist point of view is that there were cyclical catastrophes from the fall, from when Adam and Eve and their planet were essentially ejected from a celestial environment into descending states of not just light and spirit and life, but like literally they fell. We have prophets like Brigham Young who affirm that the earth literally fell into the place it is. Now, modern cosmology doesn't provide an explanation like that. Their accretion disk model for how the solar system formed, it's not a falling into place. We came from a big bang and we've been here permanently in this uniformitarian way, or a permanent way that doesn't change, only through, suspect collisions by an asteroid that killed the dinosaurs that one time. That only happened that one time, or a couple times. No. We are like clockwork running through an electrical system that was meant for this, that was designed for this, to add density layers to spirit bodies. So we're going through different density layers, and right now we're at the most dense layer. We are the farthest away from the celestial kingdom, and it must be like this. But the Lord has turned it around, and he has set his hand, and we don't see it yet, but we will see it soon, when not just the spiritual side of things has been totally restored, but we will see the temporal side of things be totally restored, because the earth must be restored to a millennial state before the Lord comes. I mean, why aren't we expecting that? Why aren't we looking for it? I am. And I think the electric universe plasma cosmology is the perfect substitute to harmonize with the doctrines taught about creation and about the mysteries and about all these things in the scriptures. They can be accounted for when you add a unifying force like the electric force from the macro, the cosmic, down to the micro, which we know that even at conception, it's a spark of life, right? There's electricity and light and that element through everything. It's not dark, black, mysterious holes that this modern Babylon wants to fool everybody with. It's a total Wizard of Oz trick that we've been kind of fooled with. And Brigham Young warned about it, talking about putting too much confidence in superstructures built on a false foundation. That's exactly what we have. And I'm not saying all of science is wrong or bad, because obviously we have a lot of great things from science that are making our lives wonderful. But I'm talking about the foundational things that make a mockery of what God has said is reality. And those are things like Darwinism, or these fundamental ideas of a confusion of what light really is. That all of a sudden it's this dual wave particle indescribable thing, and we don't really understand. We put a limit on it, that there's a speed of light limit, and we get rid of the ether, which everybody pretty much uniformly believed in, this medium that light had to travel through, and that early apostles like Parley P. Pratt, Orson Pratt, and even Joseph Smith talked about, that there was this ever-present medium that they compared to the light of Christ. So yeah, I really think science is in a bad state, and talking about ice ages or the flood or any of those things without a context of science that makes sense and matches with the gospel is just asinine. But yet, that's all we have at Deseret Book, when you have the PhD scientists who have gone through the system and must stay in their discipline or be shunned out of existence, like Velikovsky and these other guys that I talk about were, right? We have our goody-good, nice guy members of the church that try and put square pegs into round holes and mix these crazy ideas like evolution and Darwinism on these massive scales with what we have in the scriptures. And it doesn't make sense, and that's why nobody gets it. Now, I do want to give a shout out. One book that really changed my perspective on the cosmic things before I was introduced to things like the electric universe was the book, The Kolob Theorem. And that's a really good starter book. But it's got a lot of these false ideas that I'm talking about, where you're trying to meld a Babylonian version of science that isn't complete with what the scriptures are saying, and giving more credence even to the Babylonian science, saying, well, maybe it was described differently in the scriptures, and this is what they really meant. No. My perspective is to put more weight in what the scriptures say and find something that fits the scriptures instead of trying to bend them to what modern consensus scientists are saying. So, yeah, a little trigger warning on the Ice Age and the global flood, because this can go again so many directions, where when you bring in like plasma working on a globe or a planet, you can have a lot of weird things going. I suggest you could look up a YouTube video where a guy is using plasma to freeze water. It depends on the gas that you're ionizing, essentially, or putting the current through. If the gas is cold enough, like helium, for example, you can freeze helium to a really cold temperature, and run electrical currents through it so that it's plasmified, or that it's ionized, and you could actually freeze water with that plasma flame. So a lot of weird things with when you add plasma to science, and that hasn't quite happened yet in our mainstream science. And that's the revolution and the issues with cosmology and astronomy not working with quantum physics and these types of things. The missing piece is this unifying backbone, just putting the electric force really where it should be, at the top of the pyramid. It's way more powerful than gravity, and we have a Newtonian gravity-centric idea of how the universe and cosmology works, and it's just wrong. We know from the scriptures as well that light is that force that runs everything. It's the light that was used through creation. It was light permeates everything. The light of Christ, the light that runs from Jesus, his power, his creative power through the priesthood, is what is making matter be responsive, be alive, quickened, right? That's the whole point of it. How are you quickened with black holes and dark, mysterious particles and things that... All right, I'm triggered. I'll stop breathing. Good question, Jason. All right, moving on. From my boy, North Korean Liberation Front, a.k.a. the Triari. Which part of the Book of Mormon do you think is the most untapped by lay membership? As in, there's a lot more depth there than most realize. Well, first, I want to rebuke you with love and kindness. Because I think I read something in... It might be that book that I've referenced before, Answers to Gospel Questions by Joseph Fielding Smith, where he goes after one person who wrote into him. And if you don't know what that book is, it's amazing. It's a compilation of his responses to letters that were written into him as he was an apostle and president of the church, to the various magazines like the Morning Star, etc. And I don't know if those are the ones. Don't quote me on that. But that's the general idea, that it's a compilation of a bunch of his responses to questions from saints. And somebody asked a question about what's a layman version of this or something in the church. And he straight up was like... First off, there shouldn't be a layman member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because that means you're not living up to your responsibility and honoring the priesthood that you have in terms of seeking knowledge and understanding of the scriptures and whatnot. So he went on this whole paragraph rant about there shouldn't be any layman members, but I get it. And this is a good question. So again, to remind you guys that are listening what the question is, which part of the Book of Mormon do you think is the most untapped by lay membership? And my mind and heart honestly immediately goes to Isaiah. And I've said this before, and I've made some tweet threads about it and whatnot, but there's a reason why this prophet is so highlighted. And if you don't know that these bigger patterns exist in the Book of Mormon, this is maybe where there's a lot of untapped energy. That Nephi spends a lot of energy including the writings of Isaiah and rejoicing the writings of Isaiah and exhorting us to study the writings of Isaiah and understand them, that we would understand them in these latter days. And then you have in the middle of the book, a lot of the prophets in between Nephi and Christ's coming and Advent here in the Americas also reemphasize Isaiah and everything that he taught, and they honor Nephi in that as well. Well, Christ, when he comes to, what does he do? Is he quotes Isaiah and he talks about Isaiah and he says, hey, you guys need to study Isaiah. And then Moroni at the end of the book, when he's saying, when you get these things and you pray with the prayer of faith, you'll get the manifestation of the Holy Ghost. So by the way, study Isaiah as well. So there you have it at the beginning, the middle, the end, where everyone's telling you to study Isaiah for our times in these latter days. And it's a meme, where it's nobody gets through Second Nephi because they stop at the Isaiah chapters, or I don't know what the joke is. It's really lame, and that's why I don't have it in my immediate RAM memory of, like, somebody got shot or whatever. The Book of Mormon saved him because nothing makes it through Second Nephi. I can't remember, but it's a dumb joke. I hate that. I hate that Isaiah has been stigmatized to be like, it's okay to not know what it means. It's okay to just, put it off to study at some later date. Because I know as a missionary, that's kind of what I did. At first, it was like, well, I don't need to know this right now. I need to get a better grasp of things, and I'll study it later. I'll study it later when I have more time to sit down and really read through it. Well, I realized, when was I going to do that? When was I actually going to sit down and study Isaiah and learn for myself and know for myself? Especially if every time I'm reading the Book of Mormon, I'm feeling chastised because at the beginning, middle, and end, everybody's like, you need to know what Isaiah is. And I'm like, I don't know what Isaiah is. And nobody could tell me what Isaiah was, right? So Isaiah definitely is an untapped part of the Book of Mormon. But again, the Book of Mormon is so amazing and there's so much depth to it that that's just one thing that's untapped. There are so many other angles that are untapped in terms of the literature structure, the poetry, the actual historical things that we're finding now that are corresponding to it, like the LIDAR that they're doing in South America, and finding a lot of evidence that is supporting more things for the Book of Mormon. And if we look at it in this anthropological way, there's a whole lot more that we can draw out of it. And we're not. I think everybody's just going through the motions and regurgitating their same stories in their comfort mode. Oh yeah, I love this story, and on my mission, this was what happened, and I love how Tanner and Adam always bring this up too, that like if you peaked in your mission and that's all you can remember, like your favorite scriptures from or whatever, like there's a problem there. That's a problem, especially if it's like been more than a decade. When was your next conversion, right? When was your next moment with the scriptures where you were like, wow, this changed my perspective? For me, I've had so many. I've had a lot, and that's I think why I am as kind of how I am. That it's amazing. I don't want to stop, and I know there's no limit. I know I could never learn everything, and that's amazing to me. Okay. Now he says, if possible, I'd also like this answered, but for the New Testament. Well, in the New Testament, I guess I would say everybody loves the four Gospels, and a lot of people love the letters of Paul, and they talk about them ad nauseum, I think, and nobody talks about Revelations or prophecy or the books of Peter or the books of John. They're always like, hey, he's mysterious and crazy and a little weird. But I love those. Those are mine. I think that's the untapped areas of the New Testament. Again, because I'm biased and I believe that they talk a lot about the cosmological things that I like to bring up. These planets doing war and the planets coming back was part of the gathering of Israel, and the gathering and restitution of all things is the reconstitution of a family of planets as well. So I really believe that these things, if we understand them in a catastrophic perspective, that when they're talking about dragons and things in the air happening, or fire coming down, or burning rocks coming from the skies, the seas turning red, these are all typical events in a planetary catastrophe, as evidenced by a lot of people since Joseph Smith, even Joseph Smith himself. For example, I already made a video on this, but in 2 Peter, I think it's chapter 3, where he's talking about the end times and how the earth will change, and it's a really heavy second coming, destruction, catastrophic type chapter. Well, if you put side by side what's there in the New Testament with the Joseph Smith translation of that same chapter, and look at what Joseph Smith added to it, everything that he added to it was an element of catastrophe, of destruction, of harmonizing what I'm saying in terms of understanding that we are an Adventist church. We're waiting for the advent of Christ, which is going to be a great burning. Not a flood this time, not a great storm and flash in the sky and a moving of planets, but in the opposite direction, where it's going to be a coming of planets and a coming of fire and a rushing of amazingness and light and knowledge and safety for those that are prepared and standing in holy places. So those are my answers. Thank you. All right, next one, Struggle Thought Haas. A Rockwella, will White Stones make a cameo tonight? I've had a lot to ponder since last night. Nope, I'm sorry, not tonight. I love White Stones. That is kind of my pet doctrine. And I am writing, it's turned into a book at this point. I will be doing some videos, maybe in my podcast later, or maybe in another lecture like this on Twitter. I can go a bit more in depth and kind of explain my thesis around the white stone. For those of you that don't know, I do believe the white stone is a resurrected heart, or symbolic of a heart in a resurrected body. So, okay, moving on. The Book of Mormon warns this is from my boy RFE Fiverr MacGyver. If you don't follow him, please do. The Book of Mormon warns civilizations about how to remove secret combinations from their societies. How does a single soul fight that battle? Well, I would say follow the prophets. Ezra Taft Benson did nothing wrong, right? He was not out of touch. He was not an old senile man rambling. No, the dude was giving us prophecy for our time. And right now, more than ever, are his words coming true and his warnings coming true about who the secret societies are and what we can do to basically fight that battle. And what do? We educate ourselves about it. We don't close our eyes to it. We don't ignore it. Otherwise, we are ignorant. That's what that word means, and that's why I use it so much. And I think people think I'm just this rude guy, but I'm using it in the most literal sense. You are ignoring this massive element of life and reality. And warning in the Book of Mormon. It's a giant pattern all throughout. Every single society and civilization that lived on this American continent was destroyed by these secret combinations. Open your eyes to it. Like, it should be happening right now, especially if you believe you're in the latter days and the prophet's up here saying, the time is running out. Okay, so how is a global secret society about to reap control of the humanity? Are you looking for it? Do you see it? How is it? And I just looked at Ezra Taft Benson, and he said, read these books. And in those books, if you read things like The Naked Communist by Cleon Skousen, or None Dare Call It a Conspiracy by Gary Allen, or even the pamphlet on the Constitution and Communism by David O. McKay, and every other prophet of the 1900s that talked about this, right? Like, we just ignore it. We just ignore that this is real, that communism is a threat, but there's something even more insidious behind communism. And it's this global parallel to Zion, to a one world government governed by the King, Christ himself, which is coming, which we are preparing, which will be born out of the church, literally, right? This is the man-child in Revelation that comes out of the woman that the dragon tries to eat up immediately. That's the government of God. That's the seat of government that Christ will take up in his throne at Edom on Diamond, right? Like, this is what we are preparing. This is what I believe Joseph Smith was martyred for in terms of suggesting and putting this forward and being a threat politically to this American government that had already been usurped by the secret combinations of Britain that followed us over. This goes way back, way back. This is not a Donald Trump issue. This is not a Biden issue. They're all puppets in a bigger war of light and dark going back and forth for this promised land. Do you think Heavenly Father has forgotten us? Do you think he's not actively involved in things that are not like bound to celestial laws? We live in this celestial world where we hold everybody else to our standards when that's not the case. And the Lord works with everybody on their field, like a spectrum going down, the nuance. I'm sorry to use that word, right? Desnat for life. But there is nuance, just like there are shades and variations in the color spectrum. So anyways, triggered again. So how does a single soul fight that battle? You educate yourself. You don't ignore it. By educating yourself on what your rights are and what the Constitution stands for and who is out there trying to subvert our Constitution, it makes it really plain as day to know who to support politically, socially, in all of these social justice warrior movements and things. You need to know the mechanisms behind it. And Ezra Taft Benson provided a perfect mold for us to follow if we would just follow the dang prophets. All right. I get heated about that. Get educated, and then I think ministering is the answer as well. It's a one-on-one thing. Often I get flack for constantly berating everybody about pay attention to secret combinations and watch out for the devil and oh no, guys, Mystery Babylon. Everybody's like, shut up, Leland, shut up. But this is what must be done. We can't be. There are scriptures in Doctrine and Covenants that tell us that there is no great, like, we must wear ourselves out exposing these things if we know about them. And prophets were trying to expose them, and the church basically laughed at them. And here we are, still condemned because we don't take the Book of Mormon seriously. And we all went, we want the hidden portion of the Book of Mormon. We want new scripture. Okay. You wouldn't listen to Ezra Taft Benson. Like, I think that's where we're in. We're the same Israel before Moses took them out that has a lot of warped traditions because of the inception and subversion by the Gentile world over a captured Israel here in America. And when we get liberated and freed, it's going to be amazing, guys. Okay. So educate yourself, RFE, and then share with people. I mean, let people know what you believe about the Constitution and that you believe in secret societies, that you believe in these things, and the Book of Mormon warns about it. People that are seeing it happen right now, especially where you're seeing just like blatant hypocritical corruption being perpetrated at every level of the government, every level of any intelligence community that you can think of across the globe, all of this corruption is just out there, in your face, nasty, disgusting, right? Everybody's wanting to know what's going on. And wouldn't it be a comfort to say, hey, we believe in Jesus Christ. And guess what? He gave us this book for our time, specifically for us, that points a big fat finger at all this stuff going on and what we can do to get rid of it. We need to root them out. We need to root them out. And from the rooftops, are we going to be shouting the truth? And I try to do it, but then I get hounded down a lot of times, and I hate it. But that's what my music's about. I let a lot of this energy out in my music and poetry, and it's all encoded in that. So see that for that more. All right, White House Prophecy, nice dad, very controversial figure, but I love this question. What is the nature of intelligences? Did our pre-organized intelligence resemble our spirit bodies? I don't know. I don't know if it resembled our spirit bodies, but, and I don't know what the true nature of intelligences are, other than that it is unembodied light, unembodied intelligence. That's all I can say. But. And I guess this goes on with the next question here that I'm seeing from Latter-day Pioneer, where he says, are our soul's energy, and in each stage, is it an existence or no, I'm reading this wrong. Is our soul's energy and each stage of existence a transfer? Excuse me. And I think this question goes along with Haas's question about the nature of intelligences. And I just want to approach this and talk to it like from a basic understanding. Like, take the 80 million foot view right here, where the Lord, who is a Heavenly Father, who is a resurrected, perfected being, and who works in celestial glory. We know what his mission is. They stated it for us in Moses 139. For behold, this is my work and my glory, to bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of man. What are they doing? They're bringing to pass the immortality and eternal life of man. They are binding spirit to matter and bringing to pass an immortality of eternal life. And there are stages that do it. There's estates, and you hit it on the head with, like, is our soul's energy I don't really understand your question, Brian, but I think I'm understanding it. Is Is it something new each time, or is it just a transfer? I don't know. What I do know is our intelligences were a base thing, and then they were put into a spirit body and given a form, given a shape, given a first shell of density, we'll put it, that they could then move about and have agency to make choices for themselves. That was something that the unorganized intelligences couldn't do. And bring it back to this. Remember the temple videos, and I'm not revealing anything that's inappropriate or sacrilegious or anything, but they go down to organize unorganized matter. That's the work and glory of God's, binding matter and giving it form and life and quickening it, right? All spectrums of life and form that can be created. So you have a higher being who's already at this higher state, this celestial state, that's going down to unorganized matter and intelligence and basically filtering it, sifting it, like a big sifting machine an excavator that goes down into a big thing of dirt, and then it'll throw it on the sifter. I mean, there are technical construction terms, and you construction guys are probably going to laugh at me, but I don't know what it is. You have these giant sifts, right? These sieves that shake the dirt and get the big rocks out and then combine things. That's exactly what Heavenly Father is doing on a massive scale with unorganized matter and binding it and categorizing it. And I think the intelligences before, in my mind, I view them as having been seen and witnessed by celestial beings as having potential. That there's a certain potential that they can reach. And based on that potential, they are given a form. They are given an assignment. And there are certain creative processes that bring about that binding of an intelligence to basic or the first layer of spiritual matter of density. That they can go from being a nothing to being a something that can make decisions for themselves. And that would be the pre-existence, right? The pre-existence is that birthing and creation phenomena that celestial beings participate in. That's the next step, right? And we're heading towards that, but we've fallen from it. And I think that's all I want to say on that question. I got a little convoluted there, so I apologize. But what's the nature of intelligences? They're light, and I don't know. And I don't know if they looked like our bodies or not. In my mind, they didn't. In my mind, they were unorganized, and so they couldn't have a shape or a form. And I think our bodies provide a form and that shape, and that would constitute something being organized, and you would have to have something organizing that. So no, I don't think they had a shape of spirit bodies. And now it's hit me, Brian, with your question. I think maybe this could be in reference to like the doctrine of the transmigration of souls. I don't believe in that, and that's basically the same thing as like reincarnation. No, I think our soul's energy goes through a densification process or an adding of layers, and that's what happened first. Was we got our first layer, our spiritual body, and then our second birth, we come through and we get our physical, mortal, temporal body, temporal meaning time, right? We have this probationary period, and then we are baptized symbolically in a third birth, our third birth and our third layer, our third estate of taking on a resurrection and basically covenanting and oathing to live a certain law that is celestial, that is provided through the priesthood of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And that's exactly the path that we're on, this three-birth path. And that's also why we are considered where Jesus is considered the Father after that you're baptized, that he is literally the Father of our resurrected bodies, being the firstborn and providing that ordinance. So moving on. Oh, you had a second part to this question. Is Babylon run by one secret combination under Satan, or is it an ignorant organization just trying to prevent Zion being raised up? No, I think just as there is so much precision and organization on the light side, that Satan is not a stupid one, and that he mirrors and parallels our form as well. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You'd be surprised at how intelligent some evil people are. And I do believe that it's a unified effort that's happening. Although I think there are a lot of compartmentalized and separated echoes of the same. And you can witness this in your own neighborhoods, right? Or in your family where you have conspiring within siblings or anything like that. That's basically a secret combination. Or take it to the next level, your society. Then you have gangs, right? Roving gangs or cartels is kind of a bigger geographic area of the same idea where you have these secret groups seeking to subvert the agency of others and live off of their gain. And this is like the definition of the Book of Mormon, of these secret combination guys that were seeking positions in government, though. And that's like the highest portion because then you can control the most people. You have the most return on your investment if you put these type of societies and cartels and combinations in higher places. So I think it's totally inspired by the devil, for sure. And I think Nephi would agree that this is how the division ultimately happens, where in the end here, you're going to have everybody rolled up into two camps. It's either you're with Zion and you're with the Mormons, right? You're with us, the members of the church, the saints, or you're with Babylon and you're with the powers of terrestrial forces and you're terrified of the light because you chose to live a life of darkness. And I think that's where we're coming. And it's becoming more and more evident in the way people are behaving, that their inner hearts and their inner dispositions and desires are becoming outwardly manifested because of the social changes going on. And I think this is all precursors and leading up to real physical changes that are going to be amazing. All right, moving on. Eric says, I can't find an explicit command for the Sabbath to be Sunday instead of Saturday, so should we switch to Saturday? No. And there actually is pretty explicit command, at least inferred from the New Testament. You could go first to that Christ was, it's unilaterally agreed upon by most scholars that he resurrected on the first day of the week. He was in the tomb through the holy day, through the Sabbath, and then resurrected on the first day. And that after that, his disciples were commanded to perform the sacrament, to have the sacrament on that day, the first day, the Lord's Day. Now, Doctrine and Covenants, section 59, too, that's the answer that you need, because basically there it says, it doesn't matter. The Lord's Day is the Lord's Day, and I'm going to make it whatever day I want, right? So if the church right now and the Lord has said that Sunday is the Lord's Day, that's the Lord's Day, and you better follow it because the Lord said so. But in the New Testament, you can infer it from, and in, I think, Acts, in other portions as well, where they explicitly say that they're honoring the Sabbath essentially on the first day of the week, or they're taking the sacrament, which would imply that it was the Sabbath on the first day of the week, on Sunday, in honor of the new sun. This also fits in with my cosmic stuff as well, as Jesus being the new son, right? The Son of God who came to take over. And while the Jews and everybody else was expecting a cosmic Messiah to come and literally be a new sun to take over in the sky, like Saturn had changed to Jupiter, like had changed to Ra, and these other planets that were in close catastrophe during the times of Moses, and et cetera, they were expecting the same kind of thing to happen with Christ when he came. And that's why I think the Magi were coming to follow the star that appeared in the sky, right, as a symbol of Christ being birthed, this new sun that would be soon taking over. And when it didn't happen, then it was just another opportunity for the Romans and everyone else to seize power, to seize the church and the momentum that they had that they had built up through the miracles and through the life and ministry of Christ and his effect on everyone else. They used that, co-opted it, and the great apostasy happened, and you have the Catholic core that we have today. So yeah, anyways, tangent on that, but definitely I believe that the New Testament says that the Sabbath should be on Sunday. So I'm not quite sold on the idea that there isn't an explicit command. But there is an explicit command in modern day scripture, so better follow the prophet. Moving on. Stephanie says, hold on, let me get a drink. Thank you guys for being here. I don't even know how many people are in here, to be honest. But if you guys are here, you're awesome. Stephanie says, some of the books I've read lately contradict each other. One said that the physical city of Enoch didn't get taken up, just the people. 2 other books this week have said that everything went up, including their temples, so which is it? I don't think there's a doctrinal, agreement from the church. They're not going to say. This is another one of those things that you'd probably categorize under the mysteries. But at the same time, I think there's enough scriptural evidence to say that they were literally taken up. And enough anecdotal evidence from Joseph Smith as well when it comes to the city of Enoch being in some place, possibly in the Gulf of Mexico, which would make sense being on the American continent, as that was the north side, or the Garden of Eden, essentially, before, where Enoch probably would have wandered off to and been in that area and had his city taken up. And then you had the opposite parallel happen after the flood with the city of Shem, or Melchizedek, taking up Salem, also in similar manner. And again, I like to believe that it was everything. It was their temples. It was a catastrophic event, because I think that's what these preceded. Just like it talks about Noah being the one before the flood or whatever, and Joseph being the one before the fire. Well, Enoch was before whatever catastrophe he was called to be a prophet before. And every time there's a catastrophe, guess what? The Lord calls a prophet and says, whoa, watch out, there's a catastrophe. Remember, what were the first things, the scriptures that Moroni quoted to Joseph Smith when calling him to a prophet? They were Malachi, it was Joel, it was these catastrophic, hey, destruction, whoa, is coming. And I got to call you as a prophet because you're going to save the world and salt it. Like, we don't keep that in perspective because, again, this culture of nice that has taken over, or this culture of over-spiritualizing everything and making everything a spiritual metaphor. And, and when you get into that, everything's ethereal, and you don't have a temporal tie-down. That's what the temple is. The temple is that temporal tie-down, to make everything come together, where you have a spiritual and a temporal, or physical, that are melded together, and you know where you're at in the universe. I love the temple. You should love it too. So my answer is that I don't know. I don't know if it was just the people or not. But this plays into Jordan's question here below. I think that's your name, Jordan. I can't remember, Jay. I don't want to out you. My bad, doxing. Rip. Along with this, contradictions I've read, will we build the New Jerusalem, or is the city of Enoch the New Jerusalem? Or are we adding upon Enoch City? Good question. I would say again, I'm remembering. I think Joseph Fielding Smith answered kind of a question pretty similar to this, and if I'm remembering correctly, he says the city that's shown coming down from heaven in Revelations and in other prophecies, where this perfectly completed city is coming down. He puts forth that is they're witnessing, or John was witnessing, the city of the New Jerusalem being coming down from heaven. But this is the city that we build, and it gets taken up before the end of the millennium. Because the end of the millennium, after the 1,000 years, Satan is let loose again, and there's another catastrophe to shed essentially once and for all of those of terrestrial glory, right? This is where the celestial breaks off and we are recombined with the Father. We meet the Father for the final judgment. Everything's permanized, or we become crystallized, permanent. The earth becomes a crystal. The white stone we're carrying through the millennium becomes the Urim and Thummim. We become celestial bodies for sure. And we're not living the paradisical order anymore. So that's what Joseph Fielding Smith says, that the temple coming down from heaven in the scriptures is after the millennium is end, after Satan has been bound forever and cast off forever, and then the city is restored. Because before that happens, the temple and Zion are lifted up from the earth. That's like the rapture, really, is after the millennium, when all of the structures and the amazing permanent things that we will be building are taken up. The earth is basically crystallized, and then it's coming down in its perfect form in a celestial way. So that's what that is. And I guess we can answer too. There are three holy cities essentially. There's the city of Enoch. There's the city of Old Jerusalem that will be rebuilt, and the New Jerusalem that we will build with the 10 tribes. They will come and bring technology and resources and all kinds of things to help us build it in record time. That's what I'm saying. Like, we want to put these things on giant time scales, but we're not factoring in the exponential increase of technology that we're going to experience as the earth is paradisically changed. Okay, and we have these translated and angel type beings return. All of them have to return before the second coming. You've got to have, it's like a rolling up of everything, where we got like a yo-yo rolled out, and we're the last dispensation here in the latter days. And then as it starts to all get unwound again, once the cosmic triggers start, then all these other people that have been spread throughout the solar system vineyard into the uttermost parts of the vineyard, they will be again returned from the outmost parts of heaven, as the scriptures say in Jeremiah and in Ezekiel, and in all these ones that talk about the 10 tribes returning, or those being all the way gathered in with the restitution of all things. And what does President Nelson say? That is the number one thing happening right now, is the gathering of Israel. That this is the next big work, is the finalization of the gathering of Israel, so that we can stand in power against Babylon and have this big division mentioned in Nephi. So, there's several cities, but we're not going to be building that New Jerusalem until there is a catastrophe and some things really start to change. And I think about the same time the Antichrist is wreaking havoc on America and it gets chased out. That's when a lot of things will be in upheaval, and we will be really relying on the power of the stakes and standing in holy places. So be prepared. I feel like that's coming very soon. So have your food storage ready and read your scriptures. All right, moving on. Joe says, when composing music, do you tend to follow known patterns for song composition, like verse, chorus, bridge, etc.? Yes, I do. And in fact, because rap is actually pretty boring, it's like very patronistic, but I'm drawn to that because I'm a paternistic type of thinker, and visually that's where I'm kind of supernatural in that, I guess, in recognizing, seeing, hearing, feeling, making patterns. So yes, I like to stick to this too because it's a formula that works. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm really trying to put out content more than I'm trying to push boundaries of creativity. That's really my goal. My goal is to put out enough content and variety with messages that I think are pertinent to what we're going to be experiencing very soon and what we are experiencing right now. So that's what I wished I had that as a kid. And now for my whole life, I've been making it for myself, for one, as kind of a brainwashing technique for my own means and mechanisms, but also for my kids, for anybody listening, for all of you, for anybody that takes joy in the work that I do. And I love it, and I take much joy in it, and I know that it's a gift from God no matter what anybody says. So moving on, RFE again. When Peter walked on water, is your opinion that body was transformed or that the water was? I believe the waters obeyed the command of faith there. I think Peter desired it in his heart, and it happened. So yeah, again, and these are good comments here. Everybody, I think you're right on here. If you're reading the comments underneath, you guys are spot on. Okay, Kyle, my buddy Kyle, been reading Dreams and Visions of the Last Days lately. Where are your thoughts on a call out and tent cities? Not sold on the idea. I've read the books. I know the ideas. I've seen the visions. I know. I think essentially what is being seen in these visions is the mobilization and the execution of stakes. stakes functioning as they should be. These are the tent cities, right? It's maybe a metaphor or a symbol that was seen. You don't take everything you see in dreams or visions literally, never. Although sometimes you're seeing literal events. But so I don't know, and I don't think there will be a call out until it's obvious and you've already had a major schism within the church. I think once you've had this separation where people are essentially bundling themselves like they are now, we just have to maintain normal standards. Honestly, nothing new needs to be revealed, even through all of this catastrophe we're experiencing in America with the Constitution and whatnot. Like, if we just stay like this while all this happens, and we don't even try and get in their business, the wicked are destroying the wicked. So why are we going to bend over backwards and draw more persecution to us by making a call out or making it a public thing? So I think once communication breaks down and you have the people who did not choose worldly governments over following the prophets and standing in holy places, then you'll have your call outs, right? And it might be by angels that come and help you and the 10 tribes returning or whatnot. So I don't know. I don't think it'll be a giant thing where it's like, okay, guys, now we're getting ready for the next phase of the second coming here in General Conference, and I'd like to invite you all to get ready to move immediately. No, I don't think that's how it's going to go. And in fact, I think many prophets have said that's not how it's going to be, that this is a test. It's a sieve, that we are walking blindly essentially into it on purpose for those who are not willing to do the work, laid work, like President Nelson has said, and seek the spirit of revelation and the gift of the Holy Ghost for themselves. Okay, moving on. Explain your thoughts on how priesthood can command even trees. Again, I think this goes back to the question of what is the ultimate goal of celestial beings, and that they run on eternal laws that are natural and that are basically governing all creation. And priesthood is that authority over the binding or glorifying of matter and spirit, or matter and intelligence. And the priesthood is direct authority, basically, to affect the saving ordinances and all the other patterns that need to be administered for a celestial glorification. When it gets down to it, it's the same thing that organizes matter and in creation, and that we used in the pre-existence as we helped to create this very environment. So that's the priesthood can command even trees because it's what made them in the first place. And so you're using the same law. I think that's pretty straightforward. The world is your oyster. Drew says, what are seraphim and cherubim? Is their description spiritual or physical? And the answer is yes. Yes. So, like, if you just read in Mormon doctrine, I guess, you can read Elder Bruce's definitions of seraphim and cherubim and take it at a general perspective. And what he's saying is essentially they are classes of angels. They are classes of angels, seraphim being essentially the closest to the throne of God and worshiping. We know they see him in Isaiah where he sees them in his great vision of receiving his prophetic call and whatnot. And they're saying, holy, 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 supposedly for the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, so that they're there in the presence of this celestial communion and basic meeting rooms. So these are high level, agents in the Lord's court. Not quite the archangels, but seraphim. I imagine the archangels are seraphim as well. But it's a class of angels, I believe, a class of basically authority, kind of like how we have elders or high priests and whatnot now. But when you're talking translated or resurrected beings, I believe that's where you're talking about. And if you want to go into like Abraham Gileadi's work, I don't know if you're familiar with that or if any of you are. If you are, he talks at length about this in its relation to Isaiah and the ladder of Jacob and climbing up in your own spirituality and seeking to become essentially or live a seraphic life, that you're a servant of the Lord and a friend of the Lord and not just a disciple and a follower, but that you have responsibilities and direct communication essentially through making your calling and election sure and receiving missions from the Lord. So yeah, you would be like a super cool, basically angel in the flesh on the earth. And that's a big, if you haven't read Gileadi's stuff, I recommend you take that perspective and take what's good for you in it. And cherubim, again, another class of angels. These are the ones that adorn the Ark of the Covenant around the corners and a whole lot in Solomon's temple. And to be honest, I have a perspective on this that I haven't heard anybody else say, in that I believe the cherubim are potentially an angel class that is planetary, a planetary class. And this is why the Lord could ride a cherubim, or that cherubim and flaming sword were placed before the Garden of Eden. Well, if you know the polar configuration or the Saturnian ideas of cosmology, this is exactly what happened in the original configuration, is that there were planets in between the Earth and Saturn, which would have been the Garden of Eden, or the origination of where everybody was created in a celestial environment, or Kolob, right? This first creation in the premortal world. So this isn't Heavenly Father's home, was Kolob, but it was the first creation up there, which would have made it likely Michael's celestial home world, Saturn, or Kolob. And that's where they were celestially created. I mean, when you step back and basically look at the plan of salvation as we understand it, we started as celestial beings. When Adam and Eve, they were perfect celestial beings on a celestial planet, and then they were put into another planet, born essentially, and then we will be moving on to another celestial planet when the Earth is changed again. So we move from planet to planet everywhere we go. I believe cherubim are essentially planets, is what I would call them. And this would make sense why they were at the top of the Ark of the Covenant, or protecting this veil. If you follow Velikovsky's work, or Anthony Larson, or any of these people that I like to talk about, that was the agent that caused the Red Sea to part, that caused all the plagues leading up to the Exodus and whatnot. It was a close encounter with a planet that literally hovered over certain places like Mount Sinai and whatnot, where Moses ascended the mountain. And this is why the Israelites built Apis, or golden calf, right? This is the very symbol for these planetary archetypes, like a cherubim, or Baal, right? They called it Baal, is what the planet was, and this would have been the same thing, like an angel, a cherubim, or a demon is what it turned into in its negative connotation when it becomes idolatry to worship the planet versus the people controlling the planet that are celestial beings. And that's what we understand, holding the Melchizedek priesthood and having the restored gospel, is that the planets weren't the ones making the creation, like all the mythologies and the broken apostate versions of cosmology teach. We can piece it together knowing that it's Heavenly Father through his creative agent in the Word, in Christ, and his delegation through all of us who helped in the creation of all things, right? And when you recognize that it's your authority and right as a priesthood holder and as a member of the church, or even to be, a covenanted member with the Lord, to understand these things through the Holy Ghost, where you came from, what you helped participate in. Why not ask? Why not find out? Have I ever done a film score? No, I have not. I probably would like to. I haven't done as much composing of actual musical things lately, other than my own piano music, which I'd love to get a keyboard that's weighted and to really be able to record a lot of my original compositions on the piano. I think that's the direction I would go before trying to film score. Seems like a lot of work, and I got a lot more, I think, interesting things that I'm working on at the moment. But that's a good suggestion. Stephanie again says, have you considered making an Electric Universe homeschool curriculum for elementary ages? Hint, hint. No, I haven't. And I'm not an expert on this stuff, to be honest. Like, I'm a guy. I'm a regular elder of the church. I claim to be nothing more. I have no credentials for you to even care about what I'm saying, other than I'm passionate about it and I can make sense of it all. Like, I mean, I don't know everything. And I don't. I want to say that. Like, I don't know everything, and I'm not being prescriptive. Hey, you have to follow my exact path. But what I'm saying is that we are living so far below our potential, and I've just barely started to learn. Like, there's so much to learn that makes sense and that enhances the gospel. It's amazing. So would I consider making an Electric Universe homeschool curriculum? I don't know. I first have committed here that I want to do a podcast where I do go over a lot of these things, and I've got some help, good friend that's going to help kind of be the layman ears to what I'm saying, in terms of I'm going to go off on some tangents and he's going to say, whoa, step back and explain this, because I have a tendency to ramble, is probably evident by this. Okay, moving on. Stephanie says, nope, moving on. Brett says, what is the one thing I can do today to help my 5-year-old increase her love for the scriptures? I mean, I wouldn't expect a different question from Brett. This is amazing. This is great. And I would say show her that you love the scriptures. It doesn't matter how big or little. You don't have to give her a lecture, but if she sees you every day, even a little bit, on your knees, praying or reading the scriptures, or explaining to them something about the scriptures that you read today, even if it's just casually while you're making dinner or something, like, oh, I read here in this book and here and da. They're going to recognize that you love that. They're going to see that you love that. And if they grow up with that consistent, habitual overhang from their father and knowledge that he loved the scriptures, that's gold. That's the one thing you can do. And it could take 5 seconds if you just remember every single day to casually mention the scriptures, or show that you're reading the scriptures, or just read your scriptures, because then they'll end up finding you even in your moments of vulnerability or whatever, and you might not know it. They might see you and you're not aware of it. So you love the scriptures. That's what you can do. And don't be afraid to share it with them. Share your love. All right, I have a question. I love you, man. Hey, I love you too. What's your question? Next question, Jay Oliver. What do you do when you aren't pondering things? I'm doing things, I guess. Working, slave job, and wishing I was pondering things. That's what I do. wishing I was doing more than just pondering things. That's really the truth. How can I, as a father, protect my family from the intentionally subversive media that saturates everything in our culture? To be honest, I don't know. I'm working on that myself, and what I have found is to brainwash yourself. You get right. Make sure that you're pointing it out. Like I'll walk in and see my family or sit and watch movies with my family, and they hate it, but I will point out satanic things or things that are not right or things that aren't correct or an idea that I see as subversive because I'm aware of it. And again, I've said this before, but like in martial arts, if you're aware and you see that there's some hits coming or somebody's trying to damage your order of thought and your foundational morals, you need to be aware of it first, or you'll be blindsided. You need to have not your blinders on all the time and being so enveloped in entertainment. And that's hard. And in our consumer society, it's really hard to not just shut down. I know because I have a 9-to-5 job that shuts me down like physically, emotionally, and I just don't have the energy, but I push through. And every day I try to work on my music. And when I do that, and when I do some creative activity, or I work on my talents, or I share, or I serve my children or my wife, that gives me more energy. It's reciprocal. Like it just, I believe it's a manifestation of the word of wisdom in that you are running and not fainting and walking and whatnot. Messed that one up, but I think you get the idea. Be aware of it. I would say if you're worried about it, study it out. Do the hard work and look at these dark things from this perspective, from a faithful perspective. You don't do it out of curiosity. If you're doing it out of curiosity, I'm going to kick your butt. Like, don't do it. Do it because you're wanting to tie it to the gospel. Do it because you're faithful and you want to see the parallel evil that must exist, because for every action, there is an equal opposite reaction. For it must needs be that there's an opposition in all things. This is truth. This is real. Just as there are amazing light and brilliant things happening with the priesthood in the church today and with the elders of Israel and being more priesthood on the earth than at any time ever, right? There is more evil and more advanced evil than you can try to imagine. And to be honest, I grew up in kind of a colorful environment where I saw a lot of manipulative, subversive techniques, even among the faithful, even those who are hiding within our own flock. And you would expect that if we have the truth, if we have the gospel, you're going to have some of the most diabolical minds that are walking as wolves among the Latter-day Saints. And they're not even the stupid ones that are on Twitter barking it out. Like, they're not the ones that are outwardly trying to subvert. The dangerous ones you need to be looking for are the ones that aren't vocal, are the ones that are, you'll know. Just keep your eyes out. Like, just be aware of this stuff. And it doesn't mean you need to look at everybody in this like negative, suspicious way or anything, but it will be obvious by the Spirit when something's off. And if you're in tune with the Spirit, if you're receiving personal revelation, this will just be a natural part of your heightened awareness and quickened mind that expands and includes everything you're seeing. When you decide that your consumption is going to be dedicated to every thought to the Lord, well, then nothing's wasted time if you know what you're doing. You can even sit through entertainment, but have your thoughts working towards the gospel and finding these subversive things. And I find that I can sit through basically any environment or place or pain, having kidney stones. And because I've trained my mind, I can put myself into an inner sanctuary. And I think the more that you can do that, the more you can project that to your family and to all your friends and anybody around you. And that's attractive. That's what's going to draw people in and see your light upon a hill and not under a bushel. Okay, Ezra says, I'm getting tired and I'm getting cotton mouth, so hold on, another drink. Hope you guys are enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. Let me see, take a look at how many people are here. Or if this is still even on. Oh my goodness. 24 of you guys. This is amazing. Love you guys. Hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday night. It is 10. Okay, hold on. Okay. Ezra says, I often wonder if the reason we trip on Isaiah is because we're expecting him to predict specific events fulfilled at specific times. But he's more interested in teaching us patterns fulfilled again and again throughout history. Yes, 100%. And not only is he showing us patterns, but he is showing us specifics when we understand the patterns. When you understand the underlying patterns, you can basically put all the other weird language in its place, and you don't need to know the specific cultural, anthropological details to really understand Isaiah if you're looking for the patterns. That's a huge point. So yes. And history is repetitive. This is a main point of the catastrophic point of view, where I mentioned there are these cyclical catastrophes. And we know that this is the same. This is the same cycle we see spiritually that is catastrophic, where you have the pride cycle, pride to apostasy. It happens all the time. So it's the temporal manifestation of the same, is the cosmic catastrophe that's cyclical. And so when you understand that and you start reading Isaiah and you can tie together that he's talking about literal things, literal catastrophe and Adventism, as well as the spiritual warnings that precede it. Yes, then you can see the whole picture and tie proper analogies or analogs or metaphors from the different patterns that you see. So yes, huge thing is understanding patterns, understanding prophecy. Prophecy is patterns. The past is prologue. I want you to memorize that. Like, remember that. The Exodus is the apocalypse. It mirrors everything. And when you read the scriptures about the apocalypse, the Lord and his prophets use language from the Exodus, that we will be like Moses and it'll be even greater than Moses, and the return of the 10 tribes and everything we're about to see at the apocalypse and the gathering and the finalizing of Zion, right? All of this is going to make everyone forget what happened at the Red Sea because of how spectacular. And why? Because this time it'll be on a global scale and not a local regional one. This is a global fractal that has bubbled. And now we've got this evil that has seeded the entire world. But at the same time, our gospel has gone forth nobly and boldly, and no unhallowed hand stopping it, penetrating all quarters of the earth. And here we are, right? And people want to argue about race, and people want to argue about dumb stuff. When I'm talking, I see so much more coming. And if we're not prepared, even the very elect are going to be deceived by the major changes and the expectations that go unfulfilled if we're waiting for some rosy ride into the future here. Like, it's not going to happen. It'll be rosy for those who have been prepared, who have followed the prophets, especially the modern ones, right? Why do we put more emphasis on Nephi and these people, and we love all their teachings, yet we won't even read what Ezra Taft Benson said, because it might affect my social standing and I might be persecuted by having to take a political stand contrary to what's popular, right? Oh, I can't do that. That'll actually ruin my real life. Well, sorry. Like, when you start to internalize all these things and really try to bring every thought to Christ and live that way, you can't separate the two. You can't have a dual life. You've got to look at prophecy and look at all these things as being real in your life now. And how is it being fulfilled? Because it's being fulfilled all around us. Okay. I think I'm running out of gas for now. I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate everyone. I'll go through my notifications now. I haven't had a chance to see anything anybody's saying. But love you guys. Desnat, don't hate each other. Stop being stupid. Read your scriptures tonight and say your prayers. Goodbye.